Hello everybody, this is Gardner Raymond from consequencevideodesigns.com, and today I'm going to go over some common shortcuts that I use every day when I'm editing in Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro. Some of them are going to be the default shortcuts that are already built into the program, and a few of them are going to be some custom keyboard shortcuts that I find very helpful, and I'll show you how to set those up. Now, I'm going to use Final Cut Pro for my examples here. However, Premiere Pro is set up so you can import the default Final Cut shortcuts into Premiere. So once you learn them in one program, it's easy enough to transition into the other program. In addition, you can also set your custom shortcuts as you need them. So let's get started. The very first thing I'm going to show you is how to set up your keyboard layout. So if you want to customize your shortcuts, this is how you do it. You go to Tools, Keyboard Layout, Customize. And this custom US keyboard layout is going to show up. Now this right here looks a little bit different than what you're going to see if you haven't customized your keyboard at all, because I have a few that I've customized myself. However, it's pretty easy to change them. When it shows up at first, the keyboard layout's going to be locked. You just have to click on this lock here and then you can make changes. Once you hover over the keys, you can see what they do. They have all these little symbols, but sometimes they're not quite as intuitive as they could be. But if you, like I said, if you just hover over them, you're going to see that W toggles wireframes, R is the roll tool, S is the slip tool, and so on. And this is just with no modifiers. Up here you can see with the command key modifier, the shift, option, shift, command, all the way through. So if you go to option, this would be you hold down the option key and press V to get paste attributes. Or Command option S is going to get you save all. Now, to customize something, all you need to do is go over here to the right and you'll see all these file menu, edit menu, view menu, and this directly corresponds to the menus across the top of the screen: file, edit, view. So for example, you go to file, want to create a new bin. By default, that's Command B. But say you wanted to change it to something else. Now, I'm not going to mess with the no modifier keys because I have them set the way I like it. So let's go to something else where there aren't a lot of defaults set already. So I'm going to go to Control Command. So say I want Control Command B to be create new bin. All you need to do is click and drag onto wherever you want it. And there you go. Now, since there's two shortcuts, it's going to show you over here. The shortcuts are Command B and Control Command B. And we can do that with as many things as we want. Or if we say that's the only one we want to do, click the lock again. Now you can't make any more changes. Close it. Now we can go over here, Control Command B, and it creates a new bin. Easy as that. Now, say you're moving from edit system to edit system, or more likely, you just want a backup of your keyboard layout. Sometimes when Final Cut Pro gets wonky, you need to trash the preferences file, and that'll reset the defaults in the program, and it usually makes things run better. However, it also resets all the defaults. So if you've gone through and you've set all your defaults the way, or all your keyboard shortcuts the way you like them, or all your shortcuts, including the button bar, which I'll talk about in a second, window layouts, etc., you're going to want to be able to reload them. So before anything happens to the program, once you have them set, you want to save your layout. So let's go to Tools, Keyboard Layout, Save Keyboard Layout. And you can see I already have a keyboard layout saved. So let's make this a second one. Call this Gardy's Keyboard Layout 2. And by default, it saves it in the Keyboard Layouts folder, which is in your Final Cut Pro user data, in your Preferences library, and so on. You can save it wherever you want, but keeping it in the Keyboard Layouts folder is pretty good. And you just hit Save. So now I have that keyboard layout saved, which includes my new shortcut for creating a new bin, Control Command B. But say I don't want this keyboard layout. Say I want the old one that I have. All we need to do is go back to Tools, Keyboard Layout, Load Keyboard Layout, and I'll select my original one again, hit Choose, and now I'm back to the original defaults I had. Now if I press Control Command B, nothing happens because that's not a saved preset for me. So you can take that keyboard layout file. Let me just open it up this way, load keyboard layout. But once you navigate to this through your Finder, you can get this file, this preference file, and save it to a thumb drive or email it to yourself or whatever you want, and then you can load this preference file on any other edit system with Final Cut Pro, and it'll automatically load those presets for you. So you can get right into editing as quickly as you want to, even moving between systems, no matter where you are. Okay, now something else I just mentioned is the button bars. That's these things right here. And you'll see, if you don't have any buttons set yet, the corner of your windows are going to have these two little nubbins, I guess, for lack of a better word, in each corner. Here, here, there's one in your timeline. I have some buttons set up here and some buttons set up here. If there's nothing there, it's just going to look like that. But you can add buttons here, which is essentially a clickable shortcut. So the buttons that I've added in here are three things that I use a lot, one of which has a built-in shortcut, which is import files, Command I. However, something that doesn't have a built-in shortcut is import folders. And that's something I like to do a lot, because if you just hit Command I and you navigate to some footage, I can only select files. But say I wanted the whole folder, because I decided I wanted everything in here. I can't choose to import that. It's just going to open this up. And that gets annoying. So if I do import folder, now I can go to conformed, which is the name of the folder, choose, and it's going to import the entire folder. You get some of these errors sometimes if you have files that Final Cut Pro doesn't recognize, a still image that's in CMYK color mode, for example, or some other things. But generally, this 241 files recognized is all the clips that it recognized and was able to bring in. So now I have all the clips in here, and I can go through them all. Now the only thing is it's going to import the name of the folder as it is in your Finder. So you're going to want to rename that. And I'm going to call this Rush Bike Riding. And it's always good to rename your files so you know what you're doing. If you import a bunch of conformed files, or a bunch of files that are named the same, folders that are named the same, you're going to end up getting confused. So you want to make sure you label them properly. Okay, so getting back to button bars. To add button bars, it's just as easy as modifying your keyboard layout. But instead of going to button bars, where you can only save and load, you're going to want to go to button list. And you'll see a similar list as to what you saw on the keyboard layout. Everything here is the same as everything up here. In addition, there's some other things, settings, time code, pretty much anything you want in Final Cut Pro is in here. So, for example, when I wanted to add these buttons in here, all you need to do is the same way you did it to set your keyboard layout. Say I want new bin to be a button. I select it, and I just drag it up here, and I can put it wherever I want. There's my new bin. Now, all you do is click on that, and it creates a new bin for you. Let me delete those because there's nothing in them. Same thing. You want to save as, save all, import folder, import an XML, whatever you want. And you can also put them in whatever window you want. So for some reason, say I wanted import XML in my viewer window, just drag it up and I stick it in the viewer window. I wanted to export XML in my timeline, let's drag it down to my timeline. Easy as that. And if you want to get rid of it, just drag it out and it disappears. Super easy. Now you'll see that these three buttons are color-coded. I have them color-coded because it just makes it easier for me to find when I'm moving around quickly. By default, they're all going to be gray, but if you want to change a color, all you need to do is right-click on it, color, and pick a color. So you can change it to whatever color you want. I'm going to drag that out of there because I don't need it. I'm going to drag that out of there because I don't need it. And sometimes, if you have a lot of buttons in here and you want to just give yourself a little bit more room to see things, you can also right click on here and add spacer. And what this is going to do is just adds this little spacer line in between your buttons, so you have a little bit more room to discern which ones they are. And you can drag them around, as you can see, add another spacer. You can add a bunch of spacers in between, so there's a bunch of places. You can take one of these and drag it over here, and there you go. Works the same way as the buttons. Drag them out if you want to get rid of them. And if you want to save them so you can reload them later or bring them to another system, button bars, save button bars. I already have my buttons. We'll call this Gardy's Buttons 2. And saving these button layouts will save all of the button layouts. You don't need to do them individually for the viewer, for the canvas, for the timeline. It saves all your button layouts. So when you load them, they'll all come right back to you. All right, so there we go. That's button bars. Now let's get into editing. When I edit, I always end up with tons of clips, tons of stills, tons of everything in here. It's not uncommon to have a browser with hundreds of items in here, and things start to get confusing. One thing I like to do for convenience is to create a sequences bin, which is a bin where the only thing that's in there are my edit sequences. So what I'll do is, for me, my shortcut is Command B. That's the default shortcut. Create a new bin, and I'm going to name it star sequences. And what the star does is it brings it to the top. Since these are sorted alphabetically, or reverse alphabetically, depending on how you do it, but they're sorted alphabetically, so if you keep the star, it's always going to be at the top. What I also like to do is make this a different color. So you right click, label, and you can pick a color. So now it's orange, it's at the top, so I can easily find all my sequences. So I'm going to hit Command N to create a new sequence, and I'm going to create a new edit sequence. So say I'm making a video for this bicycle here, which is the Rush. I'm going to call this Rush Edit in caps. Actually, I'm going to call this Rush 1 Edit because it's the first version of my Rush sequence. And I'm going to drop it in my sequences folder, and now it's in there. I put edit on the end of the current sequence that I'm editing. I also, so I know which one is the current sequence, like to label it a color. For me, I label it blue. So I know when I have multiple tabs open in my timeline that the blue one is the current edit that I'm working on. A common mistake that I run into a lot, and I'm sure other people run into, is you'll make an edit, you'll show it to clients, and then you bring it, and then they give you revisions, so you have to go back and make new revisions. Now, you always want to make a new sequence to make the revisions on. So, because you never know when a client or somebody's going to want to go back to an old version and say, you know what, I like what you did earlier there, let's use that instead, after you spend a lot of time tweaking the new edit. So instead of working on the old edit sequence that you have and making the changes to it, you want to duplicate that, start working on a new sequence so you can easily go back to the old one. But what happens when you start having 5, 6, 7 sequences in here? And here's another little shortcut I like to use, which is Option D. It duplicates your sequence. It'll duplicate pretty much whatever you want in the bin, or in your browser, sorry. And all it does is make a new one and names it copy. So say I have a whole bunch of these in here. Say I've done, what's this, 6, say I'm on my 6th revision here. Now, first of all, every time I'd make a copy, I'd rename it. So this is Rush 1 Edit. Let's get rid of all these. So say I duplicated it once. It makes a new one called Rush 1 Edit Copy. What I do here then is on my first one, I rename this back to Rush 1, so I know this is an older version, and I'll also change my color back. I usually change it to none. Sometimes I'll change it to a different color, but I always, for me, I like blue as my edit, or as my current edit sequence. And then I just get rid of copy here, and I'll name this Rush 2. So now I know, when I open it up, if I have Rush 1, Rush 2, I know the blue one is the one that I'm working on. Nothing's more frustrating than making a new sequence and then accidentally editing in the old sequence. Because then you've made changes to your old edit, and then you'll start to mess yourself up. So that's just a organizational tip that I use, and you really want to stay organized when you're editing. Now let's show you another quick shortcut that is a built-in shortcut. It's Command 1, Command 2, Command 3, or Command 4. And what that does is makes the browser, viewer, canvas, or timeline active. Command 1 is viewer. Command 2 is the canvas. You can see it's highlighted here. Command 3 will be the timeline. Command 4 is the browser. Sometimes you'll get things will disappear and you need to get them back. Say you're on the timeline and you accidentally hit Command 3, it's going to disappear. And you go, oh, what happened? Well, you can go to Window, Timeline, or get rid of it again, just hit Command 3. Disappears, comes back. You want to go to Command 1, you're back up in the viewer. Command 2, you're over in the canvas. It's just a quick way of jumping around. Once you learn keyboard shortcuts, you'll really find that your edit workflow is a lot faster than having to click around, click over to tools, click up to the menus, whatever it is. Time is money. You want to make sure you can work as fast and efficiently as possible. Now, let me show you a custom shortcut that I set that I've recently learned this year from a friend of mine, and it's very helpful for me. It helps me work a lot faster. So let's go into this edit sequence here. Now, usually, if you want to make a cut in an edit, say I'm going to go, this shot goes out of focus, then back into focus. I have the whole clip in the timeline. So say I wanted to start when it's out of focus and then go into focus, but I don't want any of this stuff in the beginning. Well, like usual, there's many ways to do things. You could either have the arrow tool selected and drag it up, but then you have this big gap here. So what do you have to do? You have to either select all the tracks forward, which you can either use press T and get the track forward tool, or if you press T and then hold shift, you have the select multiple tracks tool, and it'll select all your tracks forward. Select that, drag it up. Snapping's not turned on. Let's press N for snapping, and then snapping's turned on, and then we close that gap. All right, but that's 3 steps. Say we want to make this a lot quicker. So let's undo this. You could also use the blade tool. You go over here, select the blade tool, or the default shortcut is B. Snapping's not turned on again, so let's press N to turn snapping on. I want to click it at the playhead, and we'll select this, delete it, or you can shift delete it, and that will close the track for you. Close the gap for you, rather. Or, let's undo all this. What I've done is I've set my B tool to, instead of just selecting the blade tool, I have it set to insert edit. So if the clip's selected, you want to have the clip selected for this one. All I have to do is press B and it makes an edit at the playhead. And now I have the X key set to ripple delete. So when I press X, bang, it deletes that clip and it slides all the clips straight back up to where they need to be. Closes that gap. It's a real quick way, if you have a bunch of clips in the timeline, it's a real quick way to go through and just chop off pieces of clips and keep moving. So you can just rip through, cut it, delete it. Go up here, cut it, delete it. It's just a real quick way. The first couple times you start to use it, it's gonna mess with you because you're used to pressing B and then having to make the edit, and then having to click to make the edit. But trust me, you'll pick up real quick, and it's really a time saver. So now we have this timeline here, and I have all these clips in here, and I can't see them all, so we could either go to Z. So we select the zoom tool, hold down option, so it's zoom out, click, 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 so we can see all the clips. And then we have to go back to our arrow tool or our hand tool, whatever we want to do. So that's a couple extra clicks. An easier way to see everything in the timeline is simply to press Shift Z. And that automatically fits everything in the timeline to the current timeline window. So no matter how close zoomed in you are here, Shift Z brings it right back. This also works in the canvas and viewer windows. Say you have your zoom in to 200% on here. And instead of changing to the zoom tool and clicking, 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 you just press Shift Z and it fits it to the window. Shift Z fits it right to the window. Easy as that. Another way to zoom in and out, which I like to use, is the Command and plus and minus keys on the number pad. You need to have a keyboard with a number pad for this. And if you're editing a lot, you definitely want a keyboard with a number pad. Some of the newer keyboards don't come with number pads built in, and a lot of times laptops don't have them. And personally, when I edit on them, I get really frustrated because I'm used to using the number pad for a lot of things, and this is one of them. If you press Command plus, you're going to zoom in on where the playhead is. Command minus zooms out. The only caveat to this is if you have a clip selected over here, regardless of where your playhead is, it's going to zoom into your selected clip. So that can get frustrating sometimes. However, a quick shortcut to that is, say you wanted to be down, you wanted to zoom into this right here, so you have your playhead set down at the end of your third clip. But you accidentally have a clip at the end of your timeline selected, and you press Command plus, 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 and you zoom in, and you go, oh man, now I have to go find where my playhead is before. The easy way is just press the up key or the down key, and the playhead jumps to the next edit, and it automatically refocuses your timeline view on where your playhead is. Command minus, get back out, you see the clip's still selected, and we can deselect the clip, or to deselect them we can press Command Shift A, deselects all of them. Command A selects all, Command Shift A deselects all of them. Alright, moving along. So, say we have everything here, and it's been moved up 5 frames, and say we want this clip moved up 5 frames. Well, we can have snapping turned on and drag it, or another option is we can use the period and comma keys to move the clip 1 frame at a time. If you press the period, it moves the clip forward 1 frame at a time. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's matched up to where that needs to be. Press the comma key, moves it back 1 frame at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's back here. It's just a quick little one there. Alrighty. Now, another way to move clips, if you want to move them, say you want to move this more than 1 frame at a time, or say you know you want to move this 1 second down the timeline. Another easy way to do this, and another use for the keypad, is to select the clip, press plus, and you'll see this move dialog show up here. And you can tell it how many seconds, frames, minutes to move up. If you just press one number, +1, that's only going to move it 1 frame. Hit enter. It only moved 1 frame, and we can barely tell because we're zoomed out here. So let's zoom in a little bit. Command Z to undo that. But say I want to move it 1 second down the timeline. What we need to do is press plus 1 period. And that's going to move it 1 second down the timeline. If you want to move it 1 second and 10 frames, we press plus 1 period 1 0. After the period is your frames. It works just the way that timecode does. You have frames, seconds, minutes, hours, going from right to left. So here we have frames, seconds. So if we want to move it 10 seconds, 10 period 10, that moves it 10 seconds and 10 frames. So that's a quick way of moving things around. Minus 10 seconds, period. There we go. And if you want to move it 10 minutes, plus 10, period, 0, 0, period. That's plus 10 minutes. Now we'll press Shift Z to show the whole timeline, and we can see it moved 10 minutes down in the timeline. Drag it all the way back. All right. Now here's a common mistake that happens to people. Oh my lord, where'd my video go over here? If I play through, I can still hear the audio, but where's my video? A lot of times this will happen and you'll have no idea what happened. Chances are you accidentally pressed the W key on the keyboard. W toggles through image, image and wireframe, which only shows up if the clip is selected, or just the wireframe. Image, image and wireframe, wireframe only. And if you're not sure what the wireframe does, once the wireframe is viewable here, you can actually click on the clip and move it around. So let's undo all that, move it back to the beginning. So if you're ever editing and you accidentally press something and oh my god, there's no video there, try pressing the W key once or twice and it's probably going to show back up. The other way, like most things, is in the View menu, View, Image, Image and Wireframe, or Wireframe. Image and Wireframe, Wireframe only, Image. But the W key is the quick way to toggle through all of that, and it works in all the windows. W, W. There you go. Easy peasy. Now, something else you can do with the wireframe, once it's selected on there, see if the wireframe's not selected, you can't do anything. If you click over here, you can't do anything. But once the wireframe's there, you can click and drag. So let's scale this down to 25% here, so we can see. And if you click and drag on the corner of the wireframe, you can resize your video. You can also, if you move to the side, you'll get this little round rotation symbol, and it does exactly what you think. Rotates the video. Undo that, undo that, undo that. And let's resize it back to where it needs to be. Oops. Something else you can do if you wanted to, if you just click on this and drag it, it's going to drag it proportionally. But say you wanted to make this shot squished vertically. All you need to do is hold down the Shift key, you click and hold the Shift key, and you can squish it, you can invert it, you can move it out of proportion. There you go. So you can stack a bunch of clips in a row if you want. Just undo all this. And there you go. Where this shows up is going to be in your Motion tab, Distort. So if you, and Scale here. So if you just click and drag, it's just going to change the scale, which shows up here. You can also click and drag this slider. But if you start shift clicking, you're going to see it also affects the aspect ratio under the Distort tab. Right here. Same thing, except for you have more control if you click and drag the wireframe. Like that. This is also the way you can animate things over here. Using keyframes, you could set a keyframe here, move farther down the timeline, drag it like this, and set a new keyframe, and then it will animate over time. You can see the distortion is, it squishes it down a little bit there. I didn't set a keyframe on my scale, so it doesn't scale. Anyway, that's for another time. Let's keep going. Now, say you have multiple tracks here. Multiple tracks in your timeline. and you want to do something on one track, but you don't want to affect the other tracks, or you want to turn them off, so you only hear the audio on one track and not the other tracks. Let's say we have multiple clips in here. What I'm doing to duplicate this is clicking, holding Option, clicking and dragging, and that will duplicate your clip here. So say we have a bunch of clips. We only want to hear the audio on this track. Now, if you're familiar with Adobe programs, it's easy enough to turn off all the tracks, but all you do is you click and you drag down, and it turns off all the tracks. However, in Final Cut, it doesn't work that way. You have to click on each track, and once you get a lot of tracks, it gets really annoying. However, a quick way to get around this is to Option click. That turns off every track except the one that you clicked on. And then if you wanted both of these tracks on, all you need to do is regular click on one, and it turns it back on. To turn all of them back on, Option click on the track that's turned on, turns it back on. Option click off, Option click on. So if you have 3 of the 12 tracks on, to turn them all back on will take simply 2 clicks. You'll Option click on one that's on, it turns off the rest of the tracks, and then Option click on it again, and it turns it back on. This also works with locking tracks. Option click on lock, locks all the tracks except for that one. You can unlock that one if you just want to work on track 3 and 4 here, for example. And then to unlock all of them, click, Option click, and there you go. Works for video. Option clicking on these will just turn all of them off except for the one you just clicked on. Lock them. Option click on the one that's on. Option click on the one that's on. Turns them all back on. That's a very convenient little shortcut there. Now, if we zoom in here, you'll see this line and this line under the clips. When you click on this clip, the video and the audio are linked together. When you drag them, they move together. When you move them on tracks, they move together. When they both have lines underneath them with the same clip name, that means they're linked. Now, if you want to unlink them, so say you wanted to delete the audio track and just keep the video. If you just click on it now, it selects both of them. If you hit delete, it deletes both of them. What you can do is select them, press Command L, and see that line disappears? Now they're unlinked. Now you can deselect the video track, hit delete, and just get rid of the audio track. Another option to do this, instead of unlinking the track, is simply to Option click, and that will only select the audio or the video track. Hit delete, it's gone. Now if you Option click this and then just click and drag, it's still going to resize the entire clip. Same will happen if you use the roll tool. However, if you Option click and drag, you can cut off the beginning of that audio. Say somebody was talking at the beginning of that audio and you didn't want it. So you can drag that up, but the clips will still stay in sync and still stay linked. So you can Option click, drag off the end, so you only get this audio right in the middle here, and then it's gone again. Great. Now, something else that I've found helpful is, say you have all these clips, you shot them for your client. Let's go back to this one here. So we have all these clips, 11.5 minutes of clips here. And you want to send them all to your client so they can go through them and decide which clips they want to use for their video. The easy way to do that is to have them reference the timecode. However, with Final Cut's timecode generator, if you put a timecode on here, we go Effects, Video Filters, Video, Timecode Generator. Timecode Generator shows up. We'll double click this to load it into the viewer. We'll go to Filters. This is a 24 frames per second shot, so we'll change it to 24. So you want to make sure that the number in the timecode generator and the number on your timeline match. So if we left this by default at 2997, it's going to say it's 629 when in reality it's actually 817. So you want to make sure that's right. Change that to 24. and it'll say TCG, which is timecode generator. You can change it to whatever you want. You could say main clips. I'm just going to say main clips. You can scale it down a little bit. You could move it, put it up here. You just click on this little arrow or the little plus sign and move it wherever you want. You could also import or input rather your XY coordinates. Okay, so that's all well and good. This clip goes until, when does it go to? 23 even. Okay, so now the next clip should be at 2301, correct? So let's go on this clip, effects, last timecode generator, and look what it does. It goes back to 0. And that's not right. It's just generating the timecode for that particular clip, when in reality this should be 24. This should be 3221, but it's actually showing 920 because it's just going from the beginning of this clip. So you could either nest this timeline and put it into a new timeline and drop the timecode generator on it, which is going to require you to render all of it, which can be time consuming. Or let's option B. I'm going to right click, remove attributes, filters, remove all the filters on that one. I'm going to right click, remove attributes, remove all the filters. So now we have no time code on here. Quick little trick is to go to your text generator and make a blank text layer. It says sample text now, so let's just get rid of that. We'll drop this blank text layer on here. Now it can only drag out this long. However, if you load this in and you type in a time for the duration here, let's type in 12 minutes. Now you can drag this out for 12 minutes. That's still at the beginning, so let's go here. But you can drag this out for as long as your timeline is. And since it's an empty text layer, it just shows up as nothing. So we can do effects, timecode generator, controls, filters rather, 24, and now it's going to display the right time code no matter what clip you're on, 80811, 80811, all the way through. So when you export this for review for your clients, you can easily reference the time code. They can say, I like the clip at 924, I don't like the clip at 942, I do like the clip at 1028, for example, or use from 1028.23 until 1033.01, don't use the rest of it, and so on and so forth. Okay, after all that, let's take this project and export it so we can bring it to another system. Now, usually, you're going to have media all over the place. You're going to have some in your media folder. You're going to have some in a still images folder. You're going to have some in maybe an After Effects export folder. So it's going to come from all over the place. And instead of trying to gather all those clips up and put them into one place so you can move this project to a different edit system, what you want to do is media manage. And what that does is it collects all the files that are used in the project and creates a new project file for them and duplicates all the media that's used and puts it into a new folder. So it duplicates your media, but then you can take that and be sure that you have everything that you need when you go to a different edit suite or a different location, or you want to send the project to somebody else to work on. So the easy way to do that is you do File, Media Manager. And it'll tell you how big your original is and how big your modified will be. If you want to move your clips, which is not usually what you want to do, you usually want to copy them. Move will take all your existing clips and just move them from where they live and put them in the new location. And that's, if you're planning on working on this edit again on your system, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want to copy them. So you'll copy them. If you want to include render files, you can. Otherwise, you'll have to re-render them when you bring it into the new system. I usually delete unused media. That will just save you a little bit of space. Using handles, what handles does is that it adds a little bit extra on the beginning and end of a clip. So, for example, for this clip here, let's see, for this clip here, I have this bit. You can see the people swimming out in the water. I just have this little bit selected. But in reality, we'll hit the F key, which loads it into the viewer. It's the match frame. So if you want to make sure you're on the right frame, this is another good little shortcut. So I want to make sure I'm right on this frame where this guy is here. Hit F, loads it into the viewer at that exact point. The playhead's at that exact point. So in this particular case, I have the whole clip in here. But say I had edited this, I'll cut it out, load it in. You can see that the actual clip is a lot longer than the portion that's in the timeline. So there are heads and tails to this clip. And if you don't include those handles when you media manage, all you're going to get is from here to here of that clip. When you include handles, you can set whatever time you want, but this adds pretty much a handle, an extra place for you to grab onto, for lack of a better way of describing it, of 2 seconds and 6 frames outside of your edit in points and out points. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility. If you think you might need to extend this clip a little bit or slide it around a little bit, it just gives you a little bit more flexibility when you're doing the edit. Rather than just giving you the exact edits, it's going to give you a little bit of extra. It's not going to affect your edit in the timeline at all. It's just going to include that little bit of extra media. Now, base media on existing file names, clip names, that's really up to you. Project, I would duplicate everything, move it into a new project. Non-active multi-clips, if you're working with a multi-clip sequence, you probably already know about all this, so don't worry about that. Now you want to select where you want to save it to. Let's cancel out this real quick. Now real quick, if you have the timeline selected and do media manage, it's going to media manage this timeline. And that's it. It's not going to do the whole project. If you want to media manage the whole project, all your sequences, everything, you want to have your browser selected. And don't have any files or folders selected in here. Have everything deselected, but have your browser active. Then you do Media Manager. Yes, I know. Continue. Now you'll see before, when I had just my timeline selected, it said it was 3 gigs. But now that I have my browser selected, it's 9.2 gigs because there's that much more media in there. So we go to Browse. We would, just for the sake of doing this, I'm going to do Media Manage. I'm going to create a new folder on my desktop. Hit Choose. Tells you where it's going to go. You hit OK. And it's going to ask you what the new project is named. And generally, I'll just name it whatever the project is named. For example, this project is named Tutorial. So I would call this Tutorial. Then I usually do _mm for Media Manage. That's just my personal preference. You can do it however you want. But Tutorial, Tutorial. Then hit Save. And it's going to go through and process all the files. Make sure it has everything, tell you how long it's going to take. It'll duplicate all this media and put it into that new location. And then you're going to want to put that onto your hard drive or whatever you're going to bring with you to your new location. So I'm going to cancel out of this because we don't need to do it right now. And then finally, say we want to bring this project into Premiere Pro. Well, that's super easy. We'll make sure our browser is selected. We'll do File, Export, XML. And this creates an XML file. You have all these versions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is going to be the newest. It tells you what you have. You have 4 bins. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is this one. All the clips, 273 clips. And there's 4 sequences, 1, 2, 3, 4 sequences. You'll save that. Save project with the metadata, yes. Hit Export XML. And I would go to my desktop, for example, and Media Mange, that was well named. And I would call this, well, apparently the project is also called Shortcuts. I lied to you, it's not tutorials. And I would call this XML, just so I know it's XML. Save it. It's going to export this XML data, which goes a lot quicker than the Media Manage. However, saving an XML does not copy all your media. You still need to do that media manage so you have all the media with you. If you bring the XML project file alone into a different system or into Premiere Pro, it's going to open up the project, but it's not going to have all the media. So here it will have all the media because it still lives on my system and it hasn't moved at all. But if I brought this XML project file to a different edit system outside of here where the media didn't live, let's do a new project. Okay. No, let's call this shortcuts. Okay. Okay. It's not going to have all that media. So you need to do the media manage, and then if you want to bring it into Premiere Pro, you're also going to need the XML file. And it's easy enough here in your project file in Premiere Pro. You double click in here to import a file, which is a shortcut I really like in Adobe programs that is not in Final Cut Pro. And I will go to my media mange folder and I'll import my shortcut XML. It's going to import all the files. And it will import all the sequences, all the edits that I have, everything right into Premiere for me to use. Now it brings a folder in, Shortcuts XML, the name of the project, has my sequences, Rush 1, Rush 2, my files in here, my Rush bike riding, has everything in here. I can open up Rush 2 edit, there's nothing in there. Rush 1 edit, there's nothing in there because I didn't put anything in there. We'll open up this one, and it has all my clips. Let's move it over here. Sorry for the single screen here, so I gotta move things around. And it has everything in here, and you can continue working in here. So, I know this was a little long, but thank you very much for your time. Hopefully you've learned a few things, and hopefully they can help you edit faster and edit better in the future going forward. My name is Gardner Raymond. Once again, for Consequence Video Designs, thanks very much, and I'll talk to you again soon.